organizational complexity exercise. So if you recall, we tasked you to take a look at a list of 54 items that the research literature has said has been important for leaders to accomplish. And we asked you to pick 3 from that list that you thought were the most important items on that list. And as a number of you had let us know, it wasn't an easy task to do that. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about that exercise. And so, how you go about prioritizing matters, right? And we each came up with our own list. And I want to give you an example that gives us an idea on why it's important to prioritize. So a number of years ago, I did this exercise with 20 company presidents. And instead of having a drop-down list like we had for this exercise, we used a deck of cards. And each of the items that you saw was printed on a card. And the task was for these leaders to prioritize number 1 through number 54. So their first card was their most important card, the second most important, all the way down to number 54. And that task can be daunting for a lot of people. And if we think about it, leaders cannot accomplish every single one of these items every day. So it really is a relevant task for leaders to have to prioritize, since they can't do things every item every day. And you may ask, well, gee, how many unique ways are there to prioritize these items? Well, if you think about it, what your gut probably tells you is it's a big number, the number of unique ways to prioritize it. If we were going to get a little more mathematical, we would say the answer is 54 factorial. And as you know, 54 factorial is 54 times 53 times 52, all the way down the list. And that number, as you imagine, is large. In fact, let me calculate it. It's 2.3 times 10 to the 71st power. I didn't just calculate that. Obviously, I had that before, but almost infinite complexity. And here's, to add to that infinite complexity, we just talked about the number of different ways you can prioritize those items. We didn't even talk at all about how you go about accomplishing any of those tasks. So books have been written on any one of these items. So quickly we come to an appreciation that leaders are dealing with infinite complexity on a daily basis. So let's get back to that example. So a while ago, I was working with 20 company presidents, and we gave them this deck of cards, and they had to prioritize 1 through 54. As part of that exercise, I had them go around the room. We were sitting in a little circle, and I had them hold up their bottom card. So this was the card that was number 54 out of number 54. So they're least important out of all of them. So they're holding their cards and they're reading a number of, it seemed to be a random group of activities. No one activity kind of jumped out at them. We got about halfway through the group and, it stopped. And I said, oh, where are we? And I looked across and it was a company president named John. And not his real name, by the way. So I stopped and said, John, now it's your turn. Go ahead and read your card. He goes, no, I don't want to read it. And the other company presidents, as you can imagine, company presidents, not a shy, bashful group. So these guys start screaming. And in this case, it was all men. And they start screaming, what do you mean you don't want to read your card? Read your card. And they're yelling at the guy. And I said, John, I think they want you to read your card. So he goes, okay. And visualize this, right? A hyper type A, super aggressive company president, the requirements to be in this program I was working with, to have at least 50 employees, to have a certain number of millions in revenue coming in order to be accepted. So these were legit company presidents. And so he's sitting there, red in the face, holding up his card, and his hand is shaking. And finally he reads, coach and mentor. And the other CEOs, the company presidents, going, you don't think coaching and mentoring is important? He just starts screaming at poor John. And I said, hey, calm down. I think there's something going on here. Let's find out what. And I said, John, what's going on? He goes, coaching and mentoring is important. I was like, okay. Why do you think it somehow ended up being the bottom of your list? And he goes, well, I absolutely know that coaching and mentoring is important. But I also know I'm not very good at it. And I said, that's actually really interesting. Let's flip this around a bit. And I then had all the company presidents, I asked them to hold up their top 5 cards. I'm going to count 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just because it'll look stupid if I hold up cards and I say 5 and it's not there. So I had them hold up their top 5 cards. And I said, let's look at these cards. Are every one of those items that you have, these are your top 5, the ones you had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, are these things that you're either 1, good at, or 2, comfortable doing? And they looked around, and again, these are seasoned company presidents. They're like, yes, this is me. This is what I do. This is what defines me as a leader. I do these things pretty much every day. And they got all excited, kind of, beating their chests a little bit. This is Joe on leadership and Jim on leadership and Chris on leadership. And I was like, well, hang on, guys. I'm not sure that's actually a good thing. What do you mean? Of course it's a good thing. This is what made me who I am. I said, well, all of these items have been deemed to be really important for leaders to accomplish. And each of them can be viewed as a lever that you can pull in your organization at the right time. And what I worry about, what I'm hearing from you all today, is that over time, you've habitually become a 5-lever leader. That means no matter what you see going on in that organization, you're going to keep doing those same 5 things over and over again. So my question for you is, are you going to be the leader you feel comfortable being, continue doing these 5 things? Or are you going to be the leader your organization needs you to be? And that could be coming outside your comfort zone, pulling different levers at different times that are going to have a positive impact in the organization. Which is it going to be? And then, I asked them, they kind of took pause and said, well, gee, is that really true? And I said, well, hey, it may be that you're actually doing everything perfectly right now. That those 5 levers are the perfect things that your organization needs you to do. But how do you know? How do you know if you're pulling the right levers? And interesting enough, that group that I was working with, and I've done this with lots and lots of people over the years, they just kind of stared at me. I said, no, I want an answer. How do you know if you're doing the right things in your organization, pulling the right levers? It was deer in headlights. It was silence. I kind of looked at him and said, seriously? Here's the answer. You can ask. You can ask. And they all kind of leaned in. I said, yeah, you asked. Who do you ask? And, again, it was almost deer in headlights. I'm like, well, your presidents, you ask your direct reports, your subordinates. You give them the deck of cards. You give them this list and say, I can do any number of these things. What, as your boss, what do you need me to do for you to help you accomplish your mission better? And they're kind of, never really thought of that. So for those, and the results could be really interesting because, for those that have taken me up on that offer, they give the deck of cards or, that list of items. And, it's real simple. It's not the 360-degree feedback that ends up sometimes kind of being a smear your peer kind of thing and has negative connotations oftentimes. This is, all of these items are important. Just pick 3 that you'd like me to do more of. That's simple. And more often than not, those direct reports ask the leader to do something different than what they've been doing. And even more interesting enough, each VP, or each subordinate tends to ask for something different. And if first off you're thinking, well, that's crazy, right? How come the leader, sees me as assigning tasks and workload appropriately, but my other one doesn't? I'm doing the same thing. How could it be different? Well, we're all different, right? We all have different needs. So it's not just being who that leader needs to be for the organization. It's what levers are you going to pull for each individual subordinate that you may have. And they may be different levers. And so are you willing to be the leader each individual needs you to be in any given point in time? And guess what? It's likely going to change over time. So once you start doing it and you're giving that person what they want, check back in 6 months later and say, hey, am I still getting it done? Now what would you like me to do? So it's a continuous dynamic process that we can look at, to help us determine what we need to do as leaders in our organization. But really, this has been an exercise in organizational complexity to see all that goes on. These 54 items really do span the breadth and width of the average organization, but they really don't even emphasize the dynamic components of it and how they all interrelate and are interdependent as a system. And it's really incredibly difficult for us to just guess at or predict what we need to do. But we can always ask. It really is that simple. Okay, I'm going to close out this part. Our next module is on thriving. And I think you're going to like it. We're really excited to work with you on that. You're going to go ahead and take a scale and then kind of comment on that. And then us faculty will re-engage with you on an individual basis on that. But that includes our block. I hope you have a greater appreciation for organizational complexity now. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.